Now on BBC News, the biggest African and international news stories. Focus on Africa.
Live from Nairobi, this is Focus on Africa on BBC News. Our top stories. At least 1,400 people have starved to death in Ethiopia's northern Tigray since food aid was suspended months ago. The impact has been devastating.
I'm expecting to give birth very soon, but I have nothing to eat. We received food aid in November. Since then, we have received nothing. We are begging for food to live on.
Elsewhere, West African military chiefs meet on day 2 to map out a plan for possible deployment to Niger. Also in the program, mainstreaming traditional medicine. We examine the role of traditional medicine in Africa as stakeholders gather in India for the inaugural Traditional Medicine Global Summit. Well, thanks for joining us. You're watching Focus on Africa. I'm Waihiga Mwaura. Now, let's start in Ethiopia, where at least 1,400 people have starved to death in the country's northern region of Tigray since food aid was suspended. A senior official in Ethiopia told the BBC that this follows the termination of humanitarian assistance by the UN's World Food Programme and its key donor, the US agency, in mid-April due to corruption in the food aid distribution. Now, in 2022, the wider Horn of Africa was hit by the worst drought in 40 years. That challenge, coupled with Tigray's conflict in 2020, put 6 million people in need of humanitarian aid. Now, the BBC has been speaking to some of the most affected people in Shire in Tigray, where many have gone for months without food aid. The BBC's Mercy Juma now reports. A very worrying situation there indeed, and to understand more about exactly what's happening, I'm now joined in studio by the BBC's Mercy Juma. Mercy, thanks for making time for Focus. Some would describe what we've just seen as a perfect storm. Of course, food production disrupted by the war, distribution of food disrupted by these corruption allegations that aid agencies are concerned about, plus climate change. Hopefully, they're through the worst. What can you tell us about the situation there? Keep telling those stories, Mercy Juma. Thank you so much. The BBC's Mercy Juma joining us to talk a little bit about the situation in Tigray. And however, let's now take you to West Africa, where military chiefs there from the West African regional bloc are yet to disclose their plan for a possible invasion to Niger after the bloc unanimously decided to prepare for deployment 2 weeks ago. Now, the use of force to return the country back to civilian rule was the bloc's last trump card. Calls to have diplomatic talks with the ruling junta have been unsuccessful. So far, 2 ECOWAS member states, that's Burkina Faso and Mali, have pledged their support for their counterparts in Niger, while Cape Verde has opposed the invasion of troops. Now, as the regional bloc tries to stop what it terms as a coup culture within the region, the Abdurrahman Tiani-led government has stamped its authority and vowed not to back down. But the big question is, do the remaining countries have enough resources to fund a possible deployment? Well, we want to discuss that and a bit more, and I'm now joined from Ghana's capital, Accra, by my colleague, Thomas Nadi. Thomas Nadi, if we have you on the line, let's begin by talking about, it's been 2 days of meeting, no strong resolution yet on the way forward, and that nagging question of whether the countries discussing have enough to put together a force that would be effective should they go to Niger. What more can you tell us about the conclusion of this summit? Well, we apologize for that technical hitch. Just trying to speak to Thomas Nadi there, and of course the area where he's in has been busy with a lot of military activity, and of course with the military chiefs meeting there, and there may have been a technical challenge there with the network, so you'll bear with us on that particular regard. But a bit in just a minute or so, I'll be crossing over to our other correspondent there, Nkechi Ogbonna, who is ready to speak to us also and update us because she's been following that particular meeting. If we have Nkechi on the line, Nkechi, what can you tell us about this meeting that's just concluded in Accra? Well, thank you so much for giving us some context there. Nkechi Ogbonna, they are speaking with us from Lagos, giving us an update in regards to that two-day meeting of military chiefs in Accra, Ghana. And a bit earlier on, we also spoke to Thomas Nadi, who's actually just followed that meeting quite closely. Well, still to come, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa are to convene for the BRICS summit next week. But one of their leaders will not be attending. We look at why and how that impacts the group. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with Focus on Africa. Now to India, where the World Health Organization has held its first ever summit on traditional medicine in the city of Gandhinagar. The two-day summit, which ended today, was held alongside the G20 ministerial meeting. It explored the role of traditional and complementary medicine in addressing pressing global health challenges. The summit hopes to mobilize political commitment and push for evidence-based action on traditional medicine. Now, this is what the chair of the WHO Science Council, Harold Varmas, had to say. Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed Ogwel, who is the Deputy Director General at Africa CDC. Now, next week, the 5 BRICS countries of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are holding their 15th annual summit in Johannesburg. High on the agenda is the announcement of concessional funding from partner countries into South Africa's energy sector and the possible further expansion of the bloc. However, one of the nation's leaders, Vladimir Putin, will not be there, and attitudes towards Russia as the war in Ukraine continues are dividing international opinion. The BBC's Kim Chakanetsa has more. Well, that's all from the program. From me, Waihiga Mwaura, and the rest of the team, goodbye.